Hello there, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are. It's me, Addison, your favourite friendly furbog who hangs around the internet, and this is another episode of the Pod of Many Things. And I am here with my friend Radley, BREAKINGRADZ on Twitter again, and we are discussing something that we're quite interested in. This is going to be like a healthy discussion, so I'm just going to let Radley introduce himself, then we're going to do some disclaimers and talk about what we're talking about, and then it's got a bit of a different episode today because we don't want to upset anyone. We don't want anybody to walk away from this thinking different things, so we're going to qualify some things before we get into the discussion. So Radley, tell me about yourself, mate.
Salutations, Battle Brother. I am BREAKINGRADZ, also known as Radley. I do tend to haunt the internet on a daily basis, especially on Twitter. Aside from painting miniatures, which is what I've been doing at the minute, I am also writing my own world setting with the intent of actually trying to get it published. Some of my closest friends call it whimsy. I think it's the kind of thing that requires a power metal soundtrack, but yeah, it's the world of Orwin, which I do also talk about very much on Twitter. But this evening we are going to be talking about something quite adult, I think. Would you not agree, Mr. Friendly Furbog?
Yeah, I think it's adult. I think it's something that needs talking about, but it needs to be talked about carefully and in a way that people understand where we're coming from, because we don't want to offend anyone, and sometimes
Absolutely.
things get lost in translation and people get angry because of their responses. So here is the disclaimer for this episode. This episode is going to be dealing a lot with disability, and that's physical, mental, debilitating illnesses, physical deformities, amputations, etc., etc. And if you're triggered by that, I'm sorry. Like, if you'd like to watch another episode, we have plenty of other episodes that we'd like you to watch and enjoy. I'm sorry that this one wasn't for you, but we are going to be taking a deep look into not just disability in D&D, but maybe disability in wider media as well.
Yeah.
Talking about when we've seen it done well, and maybe when we've seen it done poorly. And we're going to talk about, like, some of the discourse we've seen around on like Twitter, multiple YouTube videos, blogs, etc., about things like the combat wheelchair.
I was going to say, for anyone that wants to watch and listen to any more of the Friendly Furbog, there is another video that we discussed about problem players, which, if I remember right, Mr. Furbog, is like the third most popular on your channel. So I reckon we can get more views. We could make it the most popular thing on your channel.
We could do, but my most popular one is the one I also prepare. I'm a bit like chasing that old glory. I'm like, but yeah. So
shameless plug in there.
Yeah, shameless plug. So here's how we're going to do this. We've done our disclaimer. So we're first going to state our general positions on disability and how we feel about its representation in things like D&D, fantasy, media, etc. And then we're going to move into the discussion. So I'll let the guests go first.
Cool.
And would like to talk, Radley, if you could just summarise your position on disability for me.
Yeah, I mean, having worked in the healthcare sector some years ago now, actually dealing with equipment for, to obviously give people a better source of life, that actually have disabilities. I'm very pro, in this case, of a character having not necessarily a disability by choice, because no one has a disability by choice, but it's that balance between being a player and obviously having the character, and the fact that if a player wants to have a character that has like a disability, like a wheelchair, for example, or at least to use a wheelchair, I'm all for it. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, you are obviously running this game, and you obviously want your players to be happy, and they want to put themselves in something that's going to have like a narrative, potentially a narrative. All for it.
Myself, I have worked with specifically. A lot of you know that I'm a teacher. I have taught. I was a teaching assistant specialising in SEND before I became a teacher. So SEND is special educational needs and disability. I worked with kids who were from low level ASD and ADHD all the way up to fully medicated, full on special provision in terms of behavior and protective behaviors for ADHD and ASD, global defiance disorder, stuff like that. I've worked around, and also I am quite, even though people would say I'm high functioning, the last time I was assessed, I was quite far on the spectrum, so I do have autism myself. My general consensus with disability in tabletop RPGs and media a lot of the time is that I don't think the representation is great.
That's fair to say.
It kind of saddens me that to make it accepted, we kind of had to create rules for it in certain ways to almost like justify like some of their existence. And some of these rules weren't great in terms of like lived experience, like and stuff like that came out around the time of the combat wheelchair and the Candlekeep Mysteries, Wizards of the Coast book, because that obviously there was a big fuss of that made. That was the first accessible dungeon, etc., etc. And whilst the combat wheelchair itself was fantastic, provided for free by Mustang's art, I'm going to link it in the description below, etc., etc. I think some of the supplementary material that people started like branching off from that about things like mental disorders and like amputation and stuff was at times pretty, to me, gross. Like, and that's the kind of thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about like good representation in media of like disabled characters and stuff like that, in order to hopefully counteract and help people think about if they do have to create rules and mechanics for it, like how we can move forward in the future and provide a better template and a better starting point than, because the rule set that I read, it was pretty much like debuffs and stuff, and like they're weird, like, and it's like it just gave me the ick. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and those are our standpoints. Neither of us believe that you should not be a disabled character, mental or physical. This whole there's divine magic, etc., etc., to me personally is bollocks. Like, if you want it, you can have it, but if you don't, or you can make up some reason they can't, there is no reason why you have to be healed, in air quotes. Like, so let's get into it. So what did you want to bring to the table first, Radley? Because I don't want to like dominate with my conversation points.
No, it's fine. I feel like I need to kind of give you the context on how we this in this podcast that I've gotten to this point where it's like I need to talk about this with possibly one of the most coolest internet personalities. It's like,
what can I say?
No, so this is an end result of what happens when I get let loose on the internet. I remember this was like some months back, and there was a D&D session that got cancelled. So I thought, I'll go on Twitter, and I was like, someone sent me some cool D&D stuff, and because my D&D session got cancelled, and some people responded, and I was like, all right, cool, so that's quite a quirky T-shirt. It's like, nice. And then someone sent me a link to Strata Minis. Strata Minis they do some amazing 3D printed miniatures of heroes in combat wheelchairs. I was like, I've never seen this, or at least I don't know. It was more of a case of I don't seen it, but I don't really quite know where. And it's like, is this a thing? So, little old me, my infinite wisdom, went, "Dear Twitter, a combat wheelchair is a thing. Asking for a friend." And then, like, I think the response lasted for about 28 hours of just people going, "Yeah, combat wheelchairs are amazing, and it's really, really inclusive." And it's just like, whoa. It's like, whoa. I've just asked a very simple question here, because I'm, as far as I'm concerned, like, at the time, you're a hero. You're like, not necessarily Mary Sue, but you can punch mountains. Redfield can. So, but yeah, and it's just like, whoa, I didn't realize this was a thing, but apparently it is. And I was like, I need to talk about this. So that's where I am in terms of context. And what I learned those 28 hours is that there is a massive, I want to say a massive divide, but there is definitely like a for and against using this sort of, we'll call it the combat wheelchair scenario, where you've got essentially a disabled hero. Like pros, where like it's very inclusive, and that there's been like many heroes just outside of D&D, like especially like Marvel and DC, as primary examples of heroes that have disabilities, like Daredevil, and I'm thinking, what's he called, Professor Xavier. Help me out here, Mr. Furbolg. Any from DC? Let's go on from DC.
You've got Doctor Midnight is a blind superhero from the Justice Society of America.
Right.
You've got multiple. Well, Batman at one stage was.
Oh yeah, he
had his
paralyzed.
Right, becomes Oracle, and like my is when
but the main answer was two simple words: why not? It's like, it doesn't really answer my question, but I can see that you're all getting on your high horses about this. And not to name or shame anyone, but I believe we'll call him RC. He was getting right on his high horse about all this, and it's just like, dude, I'm just asking because I'm curious. I want to be educated.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, you're an ableist. I'm like, oh, what's one of them?
Yeah.
See, I'm
so
not.
Yeah, no,
clear.
You wanted to be educated, like you'd never seen one at the time, and now you've learned, and and we're like we've said, like we're not against it. We just at the time we were just like, oh, this is an interesting thing, and like I said in my thing, like it's a cool thing. Like neither of us are saying that it's a bad thing. I think something that you put in. I can't remember what you said now, but you said something like along the lines of, "Oh, this is a thing," like, and it has like rules or something like that.
Yeah. It's just like, I mean, I don't know, to call it a thing is a little bit generalizing, but it was like,
no, but like it's a possible method of play, and it has rules and stuff now.
Or like that.
And
possible method of play. That's
possible method of play. Yeah, that's my most diplomatic answer. And around, and it seems to be around Candlekeep and the major publication of. And you're right, there was like this massive divide between people who were like, "There's magic that heals," that sort of stuff, versus that question, why not? Like, what if somebody's poor? What if somebody doesn't want to be healed? What if it's like something that they've had from birth, and therefore actually, because the idea of healing is to restore something to its peak.
Yeah.
So
actually,
some people, how they would talk.
Going on that, it's my fault. Going on that, I remember playing as a fighter in 3.5 D&D called Stitches, and it was like it was getting towards like the end of the campaign, or at least like where DM was going to put like a bookmark on it, but kind of wanted to do like this really big encounter, which was epic. It was like going like up a ziggurat underground, and there's like green lightning arcing from this ball thing at the top, but we had to make our way up to the top of the ziggurat, but fighting wights. And my character Stitches is pretty good with a bow. Got rickets, which affected his dex, and I thought, wow, what a significant event happen right now at Stitches, despite being super, like, it's like he puts Hawkeye to shame. He's now got the rickets and can't use his bow effectively. So throughout most of the encounter, then picked up one of the white blades, which the DM said I could do. It was a halberd. And I sort of then had to rely on my strength, which wasn't as good as my dex, to kind of like continue onwards. And towards the end, like after the conclusion of the counter, I then got healed and got killed on my rickets. So it's kind of like, I kind of like this whole sort of like, in terms of a story, that I've now, like, the character Stitches has got this problem of having the rickets, and I thought maybe his bow days are over, and now sort of, instead of being quite alive, I'm trying to think what kind of elf he was. He was a wild elf. He now starts hitting the gym. All right, he's got the shakes, but now got a halberd to compensate for his bow.
Yeah, and I think those sorts of stories, or those sorts of like cruxes to a character, where it's something they have to live with, and it challenges them, but they are able not to overcome, because it never goes away, but they're able to accept it and make it a part of themselves.
Yeah.
In order to redefine themselves, like when your hand gets chopped off, like in previous editions where that sort of thing could happen, and it was hard to restore it and stuff like that, like you would learn, like, and I think one of the coolest things I've ever seen in like any sort of media was actually Game of Thrones, and Jaime Lannister's descent into like almost like a semi-madness after the loss of his sword hand.
Okay.
And then coming back up to like redefine himself and be better, and like learn to take instruction and accept that his hand's not coming back. But he's still like able. Like, those sorts of things are cool.
Definitely.
And those sorts of like narrative arcs are cool, but the way that it was spoken about at some points by people was just like, it just wouldn't happen, rah rah rah.
Yeah, that was like the flip side was like, it doesn't make any sense, just in terms of a fantasy setting and mechanics, and it's just like, you can kind of see where you're coming from, but still, like, you can make it work.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah, and like, and that kind of rhetoric annoyed me quite a bit, because of the fact that, like, I was just like, this doesn't need to be a thing, like. And then because people were playing into it so much, they said silly things, like for example, Wizards made a massive deal about Candlekeep being the first wheelchair accessible dungeon, and you're like, and you're kind of like, you don't realize what you've just done, like, in terms of all the others, because you've literally just said that no other dungeon or castle or jungle or anything like that was wheelchair accessible before. Like, that's what that statement does. If you qualify something with that statement, and I'm like, you didn't need to do that. You did, like, you just like, ramps have been a thing since ancient Egyptian times. Like, before, like ramps have been a thing. Like, you didn't need to say that. And then again the neckbeards come out and are like, not my D&D, like, and I'm just like,
the neckbeards.
like, why did this need to be like? The representation is poor. Just let there be representation. Like,
Yeah.
and I think the same in terms of like mental disability as well. And then it just spiraled out of
Yeah.
control, and it gave me quite the headache as someone with what people would call quote unquote a disability or neurodivergence, and I was just like, okay,
Do you think this has
but this
been
is
like a victim of political correctness gone wild?
no. I think it's
Chucking it
just
out there.
no. I don't think it is. What I think it is I think it's a lot of people like a lot of people have a certain idea of the power fantasy. Okay, like this is my honest belief. A lot of people have a typical version of the power fantasy, and that is muscles or skills. It's usually one, the other, or both. Muscles and skills, handsome, tall. Like that's why all characters try and be like 6 foot tall. Like, if you
That
ever,
is still the dream for me
yeah,
now. Being
yeah,
5'10".
yeah. Well, I'm 6'3", so like,
Well, don't be
yeah,
afraid to share some inches. That sounds a bit wrong.
yeah.
I take that
Uh,
back.
Phrasing, but yeah, no. So I believe that there's a
Phrasing.
certain view of the power fantasy that's been pushed out for years.
Yeah.
Like Batman is at the peak of his physical strength, rippling muscles, smart as fuck, like blah 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 blah. Dick Grayson, again, Nightwing, like same sort of thing, but even more handsome, younger, like maybe not as clever, but he and I think that what happened was when the power fantasy was challenged
Yeah.
in some people's mind, they had like this weird like break happen. Like where they just went like, and there was such a disconnect between their idea of the power fantasy versus what it could be,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they were kind of like, I can't handle this. Like, I can't handle this. It doesn't make sense to me. And almost in like a, I'm going to say autistic as like an adjective, but obviously I don't mean it almost like in an autistic fixated way. They tunneled in on it and just couldn't, and like, even though it kind of annoys me that like there's rules and we've had to make mechanics to justify these things existing.
Yeah.
Like, the mechanics are great. Like I said, Mustang Arts combat wheelchair is free. It has 14 subclasses, including Blood Hunter, which is like
Oh,
one of the hardest classes to like do anything for.
right.
Like, it's on version 3 and still free, right? This thing kicks ass. Like, and they couldn't get behind it. Like, they couldn't get behind it, even though it was entirely fucking optional as well. Like, no one was saying
Yeah.
that like you had to fucking have it, and it blew my mind. And then, and again, I'm not going to use the combat wheelchair as like the focal point. I think it was more Candlekeep Mysteries that
Right.
was like it was the things that then came thanks to that, the Candlekeep Mysteries thing, and then the branching things that came off that people created. I think one of the guys from Candlekeep made like a bunch of like mental disability, like
Okay.
special educational need, like features
Right.
for characters. And we'll get into that in a bit, because
Yeah.
that got on to me. But yeah, like,
Did you get
that's
triggered?
what I think happened. Yeah, it did. It got me, and like I was raging to my friend and co-host at the time, Leon, bless him, about like, Leon, I need to talk to you about this. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. And I think it might have been him who showed me, and I was like, Leon, I've read it. Rah, rah, rah. Like, we need to talk about this, because I can't. Like, and I went into a bit of a spiral, because I was just like, ah. And so yeah, like, I think it was the challenge of the power fantasy. Coming back to your original point,
Yeah.
I don't think it was political correctness gone mad. It was the challenge of the power fantasy, and like that. It's not my D&D mentality.
Yeah.
That was my input. Sorry,
No, that's fine.
I'll let the beast out the cage for a second then.
Unleash the beast. But again, it comes down to those two simple words. Why not? It's but again, sort of going back to what I sort of said, like like I said with the flip side, and essentially it came from quintessentially the neckbeards, try growing a real beard. Like it's again, it's that kind of it's the reality of living in a fantasy world, and just like the art of mechanics of like dungeons wouldn't have ramps, but it's just like, but you could argue like as DM you could say, now you've got a problem, guys. You've got a guy or a person in a wheelchair, and they can't get down the gravel slope with ease. How do you like, do you work together as a team, or do you just like boot them down and see if they can tumble down towards the bottom, which would be massively immoral, a little bit funny, but still not that I approve of that. But do you know what I mean?
Obviously, but some people, like some of the best people you'll ever meet are people with like conditions, like so, because they understand that the condition, whilst horrible, can be funny, and they make jokes about themselves all the time.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So I see this in kids a lot. Like I see it in kids who have been in wheelchairs or had crutches or have been blind. I think one of the funniest kids I've ever met was like at like 15, 16 and had like leukemia, and he was just like, you know what, I'm like, and he had to like sometimes have a wheelchair and crutches and stuff because obviously and he was just like, our school wasn't very inclusive, and he just went, you know what, sir, I rate if you just pick me up, because obviously I'm 6'6", if you just pick me up, I would be fine, as long, and like he even made jokes about it, like he's 15, 16, like if you just pick me up, we'll be golden. I don't want to move classes because all my stuff's up there. And I was like, but we have to, and like, so if the person was like there, and like, shit, and then they just boot me down there, that's completely fine. That's not immoral, as long as they're in on the joke. Not it's not like, oh yeah, well you're in a wheelchair and you're a fucking nuisance and rah rah rah. Like, it's about you. Like you said, that teamwork ethic, and I think me and Leon spoke about that actually. Like some of the coolest things with that could have been literally like, oh shit, yeah, it is stairs. Like or like the bit in he gave the example. The bit in Lord of the Rings when they're going up to Shelob's lair, like that, like path that's like really thin.
Yeah, like
he like gave that as an example.
Yeah,
like he gave that example, like how would you get a thing up there, and we came up with tons of scenarios where like we'll send somebody up the top using spider climb, rope, and then like we'll Tensor's floating disc them up. We'll levitate them. Like we came up with loads of, and that is a thing, like, because
which again kind of fuels back into that whole fantasy world idea that everyone kind of immediately thinks of when D&D or Pathfinder or Exalted or any sort of sword and sorcery, he says in inverted commas, like tabletop role-playing game.
Yeah, like we can find creative, somewhat magical solutions.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm never gonna go to a player like, so I know like most races have fucking dark vision now, and it is like a nightmare. But like, I'm never gonna go to a player. Oh well, like, I guess you're screwed because you can't see in the dark.
Well, no, like, you work around it, and if someone's sensible enough, they'll take the light cantrip, and it's like, I cast light on a pebble. Here, it's too dark to go alone. Take this. Problem solved. But
and I think like sometimes, as long as you're not like constantly attacking the person in the wheelchair, like you can like make it a part of the narrative and the challenge. Like when you have a Goliath and the crawl space that all of you need to get through is only a certain amount big, like like it just about fits a regular human in there,
Yeah.
like, and that's cramped. So a Goliath or a Minotaur is not going to get in there. Like, okay, I cast reduce and large on them, whatever. Like, shrink them down. That's perfectly fine. Like, I didn't understand why it was like so thing. Like, why can't they can't get in fucking dungeons? Yes, they can! If we live in a world where the gods can literally turn up, I'm pretty sure we can magic up a ramp, motherfucker.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like,
I think gods as NPCs just turning up at random times is always quite good fun.
yeah, and
Especially around
yeah, so
campfires.
yeah, it's just it was a strange set of discourse that worried me quite a bit. So going back to like your experience, like, and the discourse being that you were an ableist because of the fact that you didn't know that these things existed.
Well, yeah, it's just
at the time.
I mean, I've been called some things in my time, but never an ableist. I mean, Christ, I mean, like, as morally crooked as I might be, I do have some decorum. You know, in fact, some of the best people I've met in my time. One guy in particular, I won't say his name, but he was unfortunately born with, I don't know how to put it politely, half an arm. They came to like just past the elbow joint. But that guy, we'll call him Evil Badger because he was part of the pub team that we used to do on a quiz night. He's like one of the best painters of miniatures I've ever known. And because I mean I've been painting for what 25 years, and I'm lucky enough to have 2 arms. I could never paint as good as Evil Badger, not at all. And it's just like, damn. But the fact is like he's been born with this unfortunate problem, but he owns it, and he's like, I haven't spoken to him in years, but I hope he's okay. But I know like he could pick up a brush and he'll always be better than me in terms of
and that's the thing, isn't it?
Like, well, that is a competition, but it's just like it makes me proud that I've met that person,
Yeah, and it's the thing, isn't it? Like we were talking about, like Barbara Gordon as Oracle, like taking that thing that other people would see as a problem or weakness, and making it a part of yourself, and like still using everything you have to be good and talented is what we do every day as people. When we're not good at something, when we don't know how to react to something, we just make do. Like, so I don't understand. The disability thing did like mess with my brain. Like it did. The discourse around it from like the neckbeards and like the people who were like if even if you asked about it, like, where did this come from? Well, how do you not know where it came from?
Exactly.
No, I don't know where it comes from. Help me,
All right, let me ask you a provocative question. Is a disability to some degree. What I know about this particular disability is limited. Players that choose to have characters with Down syndrome. Is your stance on that?
It's fine. Like Down syndrome is a complicated illness.
It is.
or disability that has severe effects on people, both neurologically, physically.
Sure.
But there's nothing, like, again, I've worked with my family, have worked in the care profession for people with disabilities most of my life. Like, there's no reason, like, and again, some people with Down syndrome are well adjusted. Like they don't it's not like every person with Down syndrome needs 24-hour care all the time. They might have assisted living, like, so that people are 100% like, but they don't need, like, there's I know this now because obviously I've had my son. There's a guy with Down syndrome on CBeebies, and
okay.
he's a host, and
Wow.
he takes the lead on things, and like there's no, and like he's like, I love drama, I love acting,
Mm.
and he like talks and stuff, and like to guests and stuff. It's not
Yeah.
like they need someone like there to like look after him. He like does things on his own all the
Oh
time.
yeah,
So
no, I mean, there's been
um
numerous cases of like, people that have Down syndrome that are able to still lead relatively normal lives. But no,
yeah,
I
so
only I
I
only bring it up because during my call it my learning process, there was one person I can't I wouldn't name the person, but they said, "Oh, I've like played as a character with Down syndrome," and I was just like. What I said to him, like, what for kicks, or it's just like, no. I mean, I did like my research into it. I probably want to say Wikipedia does not count as research, mate. But I was just like, go on. Now we're even more curious about this, and yeah, it was just, yeah, it was. I think a part of me was like, I'm kind of offended. Yeah, it takes a lot to offend me, but at the same time, I'm like, okay. I don't know if he was sort of doing it for, like I said, for kicks or not, but I think the way he approached it was quite with some decorum, but as a
it's just
DM,
done with as long as it's done
with
with respect.
respect, yeah. As is
As
obviously
if
with
as
any disability, but it was just
so
just kind of
so
felt like that was like a whole new level. And it was just like, Christ, okay. As a DM, I think I would struggle with that. But not because I'm against Down syndrome people. I'm not, far from it. It's just like I'd probably like be thinking, are you doing this to take the piss or what? You know, because I'm not having
I think
that at the table.
you'd be anxious that like
Yeah,
at certain points they were being offensive,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that is, and that's our job, is to make sure everybody's comfortable. So if you can
Sure.
see that it's making other people uncomfortable, you have to call it out as a DM, I think. And
Mm.
like, I don't know, like as long as they've done it respect and
Yeah.
respectfully, I don't mind. If so, again, I've worked in special educational needs, and one of the things that I had to do was like look at like legislation to help my department, because I helped like do like the testing for extra time and stuff, like exam arrangements, and like the as long as you're not using some of the words that genuinely British law used until, I'm gonna say, 20 2016, 2018,
In
like
the before times.
genuinely, yeah, genuinely, like I think it might have been 2017, and it was the year before, so 2018, when they were like calling them like the M slur and the R slur, um like in actual legal documents
Oh
in the
wow.
law of this land, like the like that is what they were, like people with disabilities, both mental and physical, were referred to as. And
These were these written by a 15-year-old that is now prestige class on Call of Duty.
I don't know, but I tell you what, those old Xbox Live 360 days had nothing on some of the British laws, mate. I tell you for why. Like they've obviously gone through a lot and started like changing
Yeah.
it again, but Jesus, it was bad. Like so, as long as they're like, oh, I'm R slurred, and I'm an M slur. Like, if you don't know what the M slur is in reference to disabled people, I'm not going to say it. I would like you to go research it.
Is it like a breed
It
of dog?
it like more yeah, and usually used to describe someone of like below like baseline intelligence
Ah,
is the best way definition.
I thought it was. I thought it was.
Yeah, it's both of them. Those are correct. The dog thing and the, yeah. So it's pretty bad. So as long as you're not doing it like that, like, so yeah. So in your learning experience, you came across that, and is there anything else that you're like really like interested you as you in your journey, like about like disability and the
No,
representation?
I think it was just. I mean, aside from I don't know. I'm gonna call out all the left wingers like myself. It was just like super aggressive on the whole thing. It was just like, whoa, like to ask a question. But us left wingers were all about asking questions and being people of science and moving forward, rather than being this kind of like zealous, like, you don't know. And it's just like, whoa, yikes! I expect that from people at the gym,
Admittedly, we've
not on Twitter.
yeah. No, unfortunately, Twitter and stuff do that, and I'm just as guilty at times of like how do you not know this? How, but I think especially at that time when it was like a new thing,
Yeah,
and it was like focused on two things that had only just happened, and it was blowing up.
yeah.
Everybody was really curious, and everybody was going through like this both shift in terms of like the conversation and stuff, and this learning process of coming along for the ride. I think so. Yeah.
It's. I mean, in a game that I've been in, or a campaign that I've ran. I mean, I haven't sort of implemented, like, obviously this whole disability strain, shall we call it? Because of the fact like players were like, "I'm gonna just play this character." I'm like, okay, but I sort of like, have I broached it? Not really. But if someone did say like, "I want to play as this," I'd be like, cool. Well, we could make this work. It's just. I think it's again. I think it all boils down to the importance of session zero. And as I vaguely recall in our previous conversation, that some people sort of think session zero is like pointless, when it so totally is. Like, it has a point, because you can like get all these sort of like nooks and crannies, especially with D&D. You can discuss.
I'm not going to lie to you.
Move out the way.
I'm not going to lie to you that if Adoni came up to me and was like, "Yo, do you want to play my D&D game?" I was like, "Cool. When do we start?" And he was like, "Session 1 is on Monday." I'd be like, "Fuck no! Like, I'm out." Because like no, no, because like you and me need to sit down, even if it's just you and me. Like, and I need to tell you, and you need to tell me what is and isn't acceptable, and hopefully we meet at the same level for that. If I'm a bit above you, I might not play in your game because I feel like you might go to some places I'm not comfortable with. If you're above me, you might not want me to play in your game because of the fact, or we might come to a compromise. Who knows? But like, mate, if you tell me you're not going to do session 0, I am red flagging the fuck out. Like,
you like Deborah Mead from Dragon's Den and uses vote out, like.
Yeah, and for that reason, I'm out. Like, but yeah, actually, coming on to that, as we're talking about like session 0 and DMing and stuff, let's segue into like one of my main, I'm not going to say gripes, but one of my main concerns about this was the fact that even though the mechanics are great in the case of the combat wheelchair, part of me is really disappointed that we had to make rules, like that we had to justify it in a mechanical sense, that we couldn't just go as people, as most of the time adults. No, that's cool, we can just do it. Like I don't need you to roll up a stat sheet for your wheelchair. The wheelchair won't have fucking hit points or whatnot. I don't think the combat wheelchair does have hit points, just to clarify that. It doesn't have hit points, but you know how some people are with like, if you have something that's like important, it has hit points. There are some DMs out there who are dicks like that, unfortunately.
That's why people don't play D&D anymore.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? Like, did we need to codify the wheelchair and disabilities into rules, or could we have just role played it?
For me, I'd like to try and keep things relatively simple because life's pretty complicated enough as it is. A bit more like, I don't know, it'd be, for me, it would be like an aesthetic, but at the same time, it would be like, but there is going to be things that will obviously have an effect on the group. However, if someone said, like, I'm going to play a character in a wheelchair, I'd be like, cool. But in terms of like rules and whatnot, if it was me as a DM, I'd be like, like whether or not I would sort of give you plus armor class or not. I don't know. It's I'm just thinking that at the top of my head, but that would probably be that would probably go as far as it goes, sort of thing. Like,
yeah, you'd come to it as it happens. So by the sounds of things, so like your player, let's call them a rogue in a wheelchair. Your rogue in a wheelchair has noticed that they can't sneak up on people very well on a certain terrain, for example. So they want like boots of Elvenkind wheels.
right.
Like the enchantment for the boots of Elvenkind on wheels.
Yeah.
Surely you just go, right, I'm going to give you the item, the boots of Elvenkind, but just pretend they're your wheels.
Yeah, which makes it just
like
so much simpler and way more straightforward.
Like, again, I think the combat wheelchair that Mustang Art has made is fantastic. Like 10 out of 10. Like I'm still like scripting a like review video of it.
Okay.
For my channel, because I'm doing like content reviews as well.
Ooh,
in the newer version of the book, the Pod of Many Things. And like, but part of me is like, Mustang spent so long on that, and it's wonderful and it's beautiful, and people just won't fucking use it because it's not their D&D, etc., etc. And I don't know, like
that's
I just feel like we should have been able to hand wave it. I don't know, like it blows my mind.
I don't know. It is a tricky thing because it's like where people might just dismiss it. It is also kind of fine. But again, it's down to that whole the importance of session 0. It's that sort of thing of like, I don't know. If it was me, I'd be like, does anybody think about playing this kind of particular sort of character with like disabilities? And they'd be like, I could sort of imagine with my particular group, there'll be like a stern look of like no, and I'd be like, okay, that's what I ask. Move on. If I was DMing for a load of strangers, I'd be like, if you want to, that's fine. But there's obviously going to be, it will have an impact on like the dynamics of the group, which will be, that's not my problem. That is now your problem, quintessentially in terms of the game. But at the same time, also make it quite interesting because I do remember someone once said that, especially in particular with D&D, that the story isn't like there and then. The story is being told after the game itself. Paraphrase.
Yeah, so
it's not necessarily the quote, but that is the paraphrase. But yeah, it was just that for some reason. I think I know where you're.
Wait, I think I know. I think I've read something similar. Like your adventure has already happened. You're just reminiscing about how it went down. Right, sort of thing. I think I know. I don't know if that's from an article or maybe we've read something. I've read something that has a similar belief to where you've learned that.
It's Matt Colville.
Maybe, yeah.
Sure.
Because I watch a lot of his stuff. So
I always find he always gives me a bollocking. Even I know he's not talking to me directly, but I always feel like he's giving me the biggest beatdown ever. I don't know whether or not it's because I think he's really super passionate, but it's just like, stop yelling at me. I'm sorry, I'll be a bad player.
He does like, because he does he does. I do get your point. Because one of the problems, the second thing, these are my two things. Like, did we need rules for it? Personally, I don't think so. No. But the rules that we do have are fine.
Yeah.
Like, and they're really good, and people have really worked hard, and I'm really appreciative of those people making those rules. My second problem that I had, or like gripe, or I don't know how to put it, because I don't think that poorly about it. Actually, this one I do, so it is a problem. Is then like a lot of the material that came out afterwards that people had made who may or may not have had different conditions, or may not have experienced people with these conditions, were just, oh my god, oh Jesus. Those people who can't see, I've got my head in my hands because
Does.
it set me off.
He's
And
in
again,
a
like
great deal of pain, folks.
yeah, and like I've said it throughout the podcast that like, this is the thing that got me. So like it was mainly around mental disabilities. So we're talking things like I myself have autistic spectrum disorder. I have, and as part of my autistic spectrum disorder, I also have like dyspraxia, or my wife knows the new, like they've like rebranded it with a letter thing, like dissociative distance something, a global movement disorder or something. Like there's it now has a acronym basically, and it's not just dyspraxia anymore, and dyslexia and stuff like that. And I think one of the guys who wrote the Campbell Keep Adventure published, one of the guys or girls who wrote the Candlekeep Adventure published this like document with all these ADHD, ASD, depression, dyslexia, dyscalculia, like all these different like mental special educational needs. And I wanted to be sick, like, because it was a list of basically debuffs. Like, because your character has this thing, you will struggle doing this, and therefore this has this mechanical debuff on you. So we'll use the one that I know because, and the one that triggered me.
Triggered.
So the ASD one was that basically, as someone with autistic spectrum disorder, you had a certain amount of points called stress points or something like that, or stimulus points. And once you accrued enough stimulus points, you went into a breakdown, like an actual breakdown.
Yeah.
Like, you became debilitated. Like your movement speed became 0. You counted as like stunned and paralyzed.
Wow.
I think you even went prone because you were like, basically it was like the stereotypical like autistic meltdown of like, I'm on the floor holding my like I did as a kid, like hands on my ears, screaming to reset my brain, and it took me to places that like hurt, and I was like, that is so grim. Like, did you not talk to anyone about this? Like,
you would have thought they would have done their research first.
Yeah, because I did not see any mechanics that allowed for that stress, like so for coping mechanisms. I think you only were allowed to do your coping mechanisms after the thing had happened.
Right, okay.
So like you couldn't prevent it from happening. It was always going to happen. You were just a ticking time bomb to being, I'm going to say this in air quotes, useless, because you'd be having a meltdown.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know how would you feel if somebody presented to you like these rules as a DM? They made these rules for these things, and they were just a little bit icky and gross. What how would you? I don't know.
Again, it's the importance of session 0. In terms, if they wanted to play a character with that mental like disability, it's, I don't know, because you kind of also you're basically trying to satisfy both sides. Army would be like, if everyone else is okay with it, we will run this mechanic. However, rather than being a ticking time bomb, other players could, like, I don't know, let's, for example, roll at an intelligence check and go, I recall seeing someone like this in the past. I know to give them a hug, that actually might reduce their sort of meltdown. But I know, like, from what little I do understand of autism, that hugging kind of makes or the autistic person feel safe. So I'm wrong, but It kind of
It's
a
it's
calming.
depending.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
honestly.
it's a calming thing. It depends on who it is, and if you're going to do it, you have to commit and like
Yeah.
hold on for your life.
Um,
But yeah,
so I don't know. It's sort of then I don't know. Part of me, because I'm a bit twisted, that would kind of pander to that meme of crying is a free action, but hugging is also a free action.
yeah,
Again, it's that kind of you have that you work out. We've used that mechanic. However, you can do this rather than just being a constant ticking time bomb. But I haven't heard from what you said. Like the only thing I can think of, and have you ever played Darkest Dungeon on the console PC?
yeah. And I've not played it, but I know which game you're talking about. The
Um,
one where you like go into the dungeons with certain people, and if
yeah,
you don't
yeah,
rest them up and stuff, they.
yeah. Because there's a whole stress mechanic in that, which then if you fill the stress meter up, something happens. It is random, but I kind of feel like something like that would be a far more safe, inverted commas, safe sort of approach to things. I don't know. Again, it's the importance of session zero, folks. That's I think that's what we're trying to hammer home here.
Yeah, like it's I don't know, like it just blew my mind because I think they also had the ADHD thing, which was like the ADHD one was like you got negatives to perception, like even though a lot of the problem with ADHD is like excessive stimuli, like perceiving everything at once.
Yeah, yeah,
So perception is actually good for like um like yeah, like ADHD people don't have a problem with perceiving things. Their problem is dealing with that dealing with that information like all at once, all the time.
yeah, yeah,
Like and I think kind of like how my autism is as well. Like it's like kind of like the world's turned up to 11, like for us. Like, and I feel like it just felt like a load of debuffs. I don't think that's the way
no,
to do it.
no.
Like we can just role play a character with autism. Like trust me, it's not going to take me long to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah,
But and like we've had plenty of great like autistic or autistic adjacent like characters throughout history and media to um to like to like show us like what that experience is like.
yeah, definitely. The only sort of
Like
character I can think of is Brick House from House.
House, yeah.
To a certain
There's a
extent,
new
anyway.
Doctor. The well, uh, Sherlock Holmes has always been autistic coded, like,
Ah,
and House's
it's based on Sherlock Holmes. Yeah,
yeah. So the idea that it's like he like if you think about it, what does he do? He ruminates. He has to do certain things in order to work a certain way. He takes opioids to slow his brain down.
yeah,
Like you're a bit like, oh, like it takes people a while, but I remember reading a great thesis on it whilst I was at uni. Um, um, and then yeah, just like there's loads of like there's the new well I say new, but I think it's quite old now. But there's a TV show with Freddie Highmore playing. It's called The Good Doctor, which is about an autistic
all right,
surgeon,
okay.
which has like both the really cool things about like being hyperfixated on something, knowing everything about it, like that almost like emotionless side, but also the emotional bits at the other side. There's lots of like really good examples of it. ADHD as well, like anxiety. There's like we see these things like I don't know, like did we need rules for it again is my question, or could we have just went, I trust you, and when you cross the line we are going to have to sit back and talk about the fact that you kind of crossed the line a little bit
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
um um and would that have been enough? Probably. But then again, you'd have had somebody be like, this isn't my D&D, you're a hero, you can't be having a panic attack. Why not? We're facing down like
I don't know.
a horde of undead, like these are literally people from the grave who are going to eat me if they catch me, or do unspeakable things to me if they
I don't
catch
know. I
me.
think if that was
Like,
me in that situation, I'd be triggered, as I'd be like, "No, I'm not dying to a pop culture reference."
yeah, exactly. Like, and that's the thing. Like, you panic. You like the D&D is a power fantasy at its core, right? We can agree on
Yeah,
that.
I can agree on that.
Yeah. So like, I think just anything that challenges that power fantasy and like puts like heroes as like in like a like in like a vulnerable state
Yeah,
really triggers
it
people.
does,
Like,
doesn't it?
and I don't understand why.
Because
Like,
there's in fact, if anything, from a narrative perspective, you've got this interesting dynamic of like, I don't know. Let's take, for example, I don't know, Conan the Barbarian. It's Arnold. He's a big bloke. He obviously eats his oats. Pretty good with a sword. But I don't know. There's like a part of him that is socially inept because secretly, deep down, Conan might have autism. And
or it's
how do
just
you,
not well
yeah,
educated.
or how do you sort of deal with that? Or I
Yeah.
don't know. Let's think of I don't know, as another example. Maybe we'll go with Greg House because Greg House is just baller. The
Yeah.
wizard, but he actually is. He's got like he was born with only one arm, or at least one functioning arm, sort of thing. Like how, and if you're trying to do like somatic components and stuff like that to cast spells, how does Gregory House the wizard get around it? One arm?
Yeah.
Question mark.
Like, yeah, well, it's one hand, or like adapting it so that like maybe you can do it with one hand, or saying like, oh, actually, you know what, you've studied this for so long, like you can just do it verbally.
Yeah,
But that then does make the silent, because then the silent spell becomes more effective against you, doesn't it? Like
yeah,
there are trade-offs to these things, because as soon as I cast silence on you, you now can't cast spells at all.
yeah.
Like like I don't know, like it just, because we've got badass examples of people doing cool ass shit, like with disability. Like, one of my favorite characters of all time. Do you watch a lot of anime?
I used to back in the past. I still have. If anyone's ever watched it, a Street Fighter 2 animated movie, that film is still amazing and it still holds up.
Yes, yes. So there's an anime called Bleach. I don't know if you've heard
I've
of it.
heard of Bleach. From what I
Yeah,
understand, it's like Naruto, but without a large Hawaiian woman doing the voice of the main star.
it's so imagine like Naruto, but instead of ninjas, they're like the Grim Reapers.
Right.
Like they're like so like
Kind of get the impression there's a lot more
like
samurai. That's what I should have gone with.
yeah, it's yeah,
Or attempt at being
it's
funny on my
like
part there.
basically your sword. Your sword's like a reflection of your soul. You are a soul if you're a Shinigami, and basically it does fit your soul. Your swords can do have like superpowers. So if you speak your sword's name, like for example, um, uh, hold your head up, Wabasuke. Your sword will change appearance and it gets a special ability. So Wabasuke, one of my favorite Zanpakuto's abilities, is everything it hits, it doubles its weight. So like if I hit your sword like 4 times, I've like times 32 the weight of it. Like I compound its weight. So I think that in Bleach, that one of my favorite characters is actually a woman called Kaku Shiba, and she's not actually that much of an important character. You meet her like for a few seconds in like the the second arc, the Soul Society arc. She is the head of the Shiba clan, and she is like this pyrotechnic bomb maker. like pretty or stereotypical pretty anime woman,
I'm
kind of a large
I'm not
chest.
having a perv. I'm just looking up for educational needs on
Yeah,
Google Images.
and the coolest thing about Kukaku, and one of the reasons why I loved her, was one, she was kick ass, and like she was kind of like the tomboy on crack, like
Yeah.
I can drink and smoke and swear with the best of the men, sort of thing. But she also had a prosthetic arm,
Okay.
and I've actually like taken her like into many of my games. Like I like people won't know, like but like sometimes they've spoken to like an NPC, usually in the same sort of profession. So if they're like a bomb maker or gunpowder merchant, you'll get a woman with like long raven hair, like pipe, like dangerously close to black powder that is lit for like she like she knows her craft that well that she's like, right, I trust myself enough, because the arm wasn't from
Oh, I
if
see.
I'm correct,
It's
don't
like a mannequin's arm. I'm with you now. Right.
yeah,
I'm looking at the
yeah,
images.
so
I'm
like
thinking,
she
where?
yeah, because you can't notice
No.
it until she like moves it. You don't notice it, but she's like
Yeah,
badass, and she was like
yeah.
one of my first,
Subtle.
like apart from like the obvious Daredevil and Cyclops and all those people who had like obvious, very obvious.
Yeah, yeah.
She just, and like that's one of the reasons why in Strahd. Now, this is going to trigger some people. I fucking loved Esmeralda before. Like the whole like thing. Have you played
I
Strahd?
haven't.
You played Strahd, right?
No, I haven't.
Oh well. So there's this like kind of like gypsy-esque monster hunter called Esmeralda. And she has a prosthetic leg that she's very secretive about, because obviously if you've ever played Strahd and you know Strahd, everybody knows Strahd, Barovia is an unforgiving place, right? If people find out your weaknesses, they tend to use them against
Right.
you for some reason.
Okay.
I don't know why. Maybe it's because everything's out to kill you in Barovia. But as someone who's played it,
Yeah, yeah.
ugh, like everything's out to kill you, I wouldn't want them to know my weaknesses either, or like what's perceived to be a weakness, or like a weak point. Like, so, and then people got really upset that she like hid her disability. I'm like, there's also her leg. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you wear trousers and stuff. Like, but yeah, like, and one of the things I loved about Esmeralda as a character, and why I've stolen her from Strahd and put her into my campaigns as like a meetable NPC when you go to like the Monster Hunters Guild and stuff. It's like, yeah, she's she's got one leg, but she could still kick your ass.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and she will not care. She might even take the leg off and beat you with it. That's how annoyed she will be with you for even trying. Like, and that's fine. Like, it wasn't like, oh well, she could restore it with magic or whatever. No, she kept it. It's who she is. She's proud of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
She's not going to make a massive deal out of it, because you know what? You're going to take pity on her or whatever and decide that she can't look after herself. And you know what? She fucking can. And she's going to show you if you say that again. Like, that's how I love to see Esmeralda played. And after the whole like thing where it's like, oh well, her leg's not like an obvious thing, I'm like,
Kind of the point.
I feel like like I think you're missing the point. I think you're going sideways. You're going backwards for coming forwards, sort of thing. Like you can't turn around to her and go, oh well, you're disabled, be disabled, and have her be there like, but I'm still badass. What does it matter?
Yeah.
Like representation is representation. I get that. I'm all for that, and that's one of the reasons why I really liked Esmeralda as well, because of that like representation of like you could find out that she'd lost her leg and etc. But you know, like if it's not the crux of who she is,
Yeah.
if it's not like something that like gets on her goat or anything, then let it be. Let Sleeping Dogs lie. She'll tell you when she's ready. Just like everything else.
I'm assuming
I know,
Esmeralda is. I'm again. This is only going from images I've now just seen of her. This is like D&D's answer to Esmeralda from Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah, there is a bit of a problem with the race that she's from in oh no,
No.
hang on. There's a bit of a sorry, I'm on the wrong. That's not me. I'm on the wrong. I was going to use my D&D Beyond account,
No.
but I'm on the wrong thing. Yeah, there is some issues with like I can't remember what they're called. What are they called?
Like a Romanian gypsy?
Yeah, but they're not called. Obviously, they're not called Romani in
Or in Strad.
in Strad. I can't remember what they're called. But yeah, there's a few problems like the whole stereotypes with that, and like they could have done a bit better. But yeah, like you just like just let it go. Like we can have
Is that
have
another
both
Disney
things.
reference there, Mr. Friendly Furbolg?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I do that
No,
sometimes.
we don't talk about Bruno, alright? It's just
No, but yeah, like there's just I'm just trying to get it to work and trying to like everybody should be represented at a
Absolutely.
table. Okay? And like and then it's not letting me log into my D&D Beyond account for some reason.
Seeing what part of Esmeralda is.
What the no, or what Esmeralda's race, what their race is called. Esmeralda D&D 5e.
Don't Google search Esmeralda race.
No. She is. Oh no, she's not. It's not. Whatever. Right, we've dealt with it. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of Vistani. That's it. Yeah, Vistani.
Good old
like
Google.
the Vistani have a. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. But yeah, the Vistani have some issues. I'm not beyond like saying that, but like
Is it because
I really liked
it
Esmeralda.
kind of plays on sort of real world stereotypes?
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing? Question mark.
Yeah, if they're used to like be like derogatory.
Okay.
So like for
that's
example,
fair.
the Vistani are like these like in the original they've obviously changed it with the revamped edition of Strahd.
Is that another pun?
No, it is a pun on the book, yeah. Like it is literally the book is called Revamped, yeah.
Nice.
They
easily amused.
They they just kind of they were like drunks and served like Strahd because they had no other thing and
No, I only asked because from like when I've been doing my writing and stuff of like my world setting, I kind of sort of played on. There's like I got one place I've written about called Glandem, and it's very, very heavily inspired by Scottish Highlanders, like kind of like William Wallace, that kind of like big fans of claymores, not the mine, the actual sword.
Yeah, but are you doing that?
I don't think I've.
Are you doing that to be offensive, or are you doing it to just?
Because I mean,
base their thing.
It's I mean,
base their culture.
Pretty much basing it on that particular era of Scotland. But I don't think I've been respectful about it. Not saying that all Scottish are like making themselves blue and run around saying for freedom and all that. It's more of a case of this is like the research I've done. I'm going to now Radleyfy it and then make it into this. And it'd be like when people read it, they'd be like, I can kind of see what you've done there. That's quite clever. Or that's complete nonsense. Yeah. You're an idiot, Rads. Back to the drawing board with you. you know? No, I mean, no, it's only just. I think, even as a writer, he says, I don't obviously I don't intend to cause any offence. The only thing I intend to do is make people's eyes roll like that is ridiculous, but I'm totally sold on it, sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's what we need to do. Like that's the we have to base um we have to base some of it in real life experience, otherwise we're never gonna figure it
Oh,
out, you know?
definitely.
Like you there's nothing original under the sun. You just have to deal with
If,
it.
I was
So
going to say,
I don't know,
speaking, I know
like
we've gone a bit of a tangent, but speaking of the derogatory thing, distinctly remember there was a tabletop game called Infinity. Have you ever heard of Infinity?
no, I haven't, but
Uh, it's
I'm willing to
it's.
learn. I'm
I've
willing
never
to
played it
learn.
myself, but I've always been curious about it, and I distinctly remember there was a it's like Warhammer 40k, but you play as like a small team of people, and you use d20s, and you can do actions and stuff like that. Miniatures for it are really, really impressive, but I do remember there was one faction that was very much based on Islam. You can probably see where I'm going with this, but
Mm,
the way they portrayed them was like, I mean, it's risky. I was trying to be politically correct to kind of like sort of look into that, especially in more like especially with what's been happening in the last 20 years. But the way they portray these miniatures, I can't remember what the name of the faction is called, but if anyone that does play Infinity know what I'm on about. But the way they portray these miniatures is not derogatory or offensive at all. It's like this is like I think it's like they're called New Islam or something like that, or it's something Islam, but the something word means new. But they've cleverly done it, so it's not derogatory. It's like this is a faction. These are like the people that are in this faction. Yeah, they're from like a futuristic version of Islam, but it's not offensive, and it's like slow clap, like bravo. I like it.
yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? Like if you can do it well, like, and this is the thing with disability as well. No one is saying that you can't do it. No one is saying that, but I will demand that you do it well and you do it justice and you're not offensive. Like, I do demand that you are somewhat inclusive at your tables. Like, but I also kind of want you to also face the same. If you're gonna play that as someone who's not that, I'm gonna research and give you challenges based on that
Yeah.
thing. Like, you asked to play that. You asked to play in a wheelchair. We're going to use the wheelchair example again. We're going to face some of the problems that go with wheelchairs because you know what? That's just how things go. And maybe along the way, you learn some empathy. Like, what's the worst that can happen? You learn some empathy. You learn like that this is how we
Yeah,
do
yeah.
things. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't see the harm in doing um doing it right. I do see the harm in doing it wrong
Yeah.
though, and I am very much of the belief that if we get this wrong, if we fuck it up, a lot of people are going to get hurt,
Mm.
and I don't want that to happen. So I need people like Mustang to keep doing their good
Yeah, yeah.
work. I need people like us to keep having the conversation. I need people around tables and stuff to have
Yeah,
those
yeah,
conversations with
definitely.
their players about, because you know what, and again, this might be my job, like, and seeing this and having grown up with it, because obviously as someone with
Mm.
autism, quite early diagnosed in my
Yeah.
life, I was in all those groups at school with all the special needs kids for a long
Mm.
time. um it's lonely, it's horrible
Mm.
sometimes, and like, I can imagine having a chronic illness is also pretty fucking
Yeah.
shit. Like, and we would all love for someone just to understand. Like, all I want you to do is understand. All I want is some empathy. All I want is to be able to talk to you about it or see you respect it. I don't want you to treat me like royalty. I don't want you to treat me like, well, and obviously people need special allowances and stuff like that, but you know what I mean. I don't want you to put me on a pedestal for it, you know?
No.
Like I just want, and that's what a lot of them want. A lot of them just want normal lives.
It's the inclusion, which is fundamentally what D&D is kind of all about.
Yeah, like D&D is about working together as what, 50 different races now?
Yeah.
Like way more
I've
than
lost
that.
count.
Like 50
I've
different
lost count.
official races. Yeah. Yeah, like 50 official races now, all different types of elves, all different types of halflings, etc. Like obviously we've changed a bit of the drow and the half orcs and stuff, but you know what? Okay. That's fine. Like just it's like I don't know about you, but what if you could like bottle it all up and go, this is what it's about. What would you say? What would be your like closing statement?
I see it, Mr. Friendly Furbolg. It's that regardless if you've got disability or like if the hero's got a disability or not, a black dragon that's terrorizing that town, it's not going to really give 2 cents, but it is going to give 2 cents when you chuck a fireball at it. Be it if it's from a wheelchair or not.
Fair enough. I respect that.
that's the way I see it.
And my thing is kind of like how I sign in and out of every podcast. Like whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are, everyone's invited to the table in my games. Like, and as long as we're being respectful and inclusive and doing our best to be the best we can be, and hopefully, as Critical Role say, leave the world a better place than we found it, even if it's only for 2 hours. Like, that's all right by me. Like,
I can get behind that.
but if you're gonna be I don't know. Like, it's sometimes when I see all that hate on Twitter and stuff, like it is difficult. Like, it is hard because it's almost like people don't want. Apparently, people don't want. If people don't want people like me in their games, do they want me at their table?
Yeah.
Right.
Again,
Like, and
would you associate with those kind of people in the first place?
but this is the thing. I think one of the surprising things about all this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is like it was everyone. Like everyone got involved and everyone was kind of vulgar to one another, whether they thought they were in the right or not. And like some people were surprising. Like some people were a bit like, no fucking way, not you. Like, you know.
Yeah, it's surprising when people show their true colours. You know, it's like,
yeah, some people went mask off, like proper mask off, like for it, and that was scary. And like, I don't know, it made me wonder. And I think that's why, I trust you to have this conversation because we can have it and like be like honest with one another.
definitely.
Whereas there are certain people who I'd try and have this conversation with, and I wouldn't feel comfortable like going into it. And like I know that even when we play like devil's advocate and stuff, I don't know. How do you feel about it?
First off, I'm honoured that you can have this sort of conversation with me, which is awesome. But no, it's again like I would still argue that it's the importance of session 0. Like these are the sort of things you need to kind of talk about from the get-go, and as long as everyone's comfortable and okay with whatever anyone decides to play as, wheelchair bound or have a mental disability or anything, because you can make it together because you're not as DM this is from what I have learned, especially recently, is like even though you're telling the story, it's the heroes, the players are telling the story. You're kind of like Sharon on the ferry boat, and you're kind of guiding them towards hell. But if someone's got a wheelchair or whatever, it's fine. Let's just make this work.
Yeah, and that's, I think, actually probably the best place to end it. Let's just make it work. Let's be kind to one another. Let's make sure. Do you have anything you want to say before we close out?
Just trying to think something witty and clever to say, and I can't because it's almost bedtime. 5 to 10 on a Friday night, rock and roll. No, I was going to say
we're old now. We're boomers.
Yeah, especially after Wednesday. No, I was going to say if anyone's interested in what I particularly do, follow me on Twitter. And if anyone obviously listens to this, obviously everyone will talk about it with us afterwards. So, just drop us a tweet, drop us a message. On YouTube or any other social media platform. More than willing to answer any queries.
Yeah, I'm all up for comments and discussion. Obviously, listen to the whole thing. Like, don't assume something because we've played devil's advocate or anything like that, or we've asked a hard question or a spicy question, or we've got a bit heated about something. Just listen to the whole thing. Listen to the context. Be here in good faith, because trust me, I'll always treat you in good faith.
Twice.
And I'll always try and listen to you, because remember, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are, I hope you're safe. I hope you're well. I've been Addison, your friendly favourite Furbolg. I've been here with BREAKINGRADZ. You can catch me as the Pod of Many Things on Twitter, Twitch now, YouTube, all the good stuff on my link tree. That will be in the description. And yeah, I just disabled representation sucks. Disability representation sucks. So let's make it better.
Make it better.
Peace.